In this video, you're going to learn all about the keto diet for women's weight loss. In more detail, here's what you can expect to cover. First, we'll discuss what is the keto diet. Is it just a low carbohydrate diet, or is there more to it than that? Then we'll talk about, is it effective for helping people lose weight compared to, is it superior to other diets, to high carb diets for fat loss? And lastly, the most important thing in any diet that's designed for fat loss is how many calories should you eat? We'll address that later on. Before we jump in, who am I? My name is Igor. I've been a personal trainer since 2006 with a specialty in women's health. I've also been training other personal trainers in my methodology by presenting at some of the world's largest personal training conferences since 2013. And I've delivered over 400 wellness presentations to some of Canada's largest corporations, including IBM, Bosch, American Express, University of Toronto, Investors Group, and others. As well, I'm the author of the book, Mastering Menopause. If you want to purchase my book on Amazon, the link is in the description below. If you want to learn when I publish more videos about fat loss, exercise, nutrition, and supplements for women, click like and subscribe to my YouTube channel. So let's define, what is a keto diet? Well, simply put, it is a ketone-producing diet. And if you're wondering, what is a ketone? We'll address that in a second. It's designed to induce a metabolic state called ketosis. And again, we'll discuss what ketosis is in a few minutes. It contains a moderate protein intake, which separates it from other low-carb diets, which have a high protein intake. The keto diet has a moderate protein intake. It's also high in fat, so more than 60% of a person's daily calories will come from dietary fat, and it's low in carb. That is under 50 grams per day in carbs. The difference between the keto diet and a typical low-carb diet is that typical low-carb diets are between 50 and 150 grams of carbs per day. A keto diet is under 50 grams of carbs per day. So let's talk about it. It's a ketone-producing diet. So what are ketones? Ketones are an alternate fuel source. Alternative to what? Alternative to glucose. Glucose is the primary fuel source, and ketones are secondary. Ketones serve as an alternative fuel source for the body when carbohydrate intake is limited. In the absence of sufficient carbs, the liver makes ketone bodies, and ketones are transported to various tissues where they are readily converted into energy. So again, it's just an energy source that is an alternative to the preferred energy source, which is glucose. Now, how do you know if you're in ketosis? There are a few different ways to measure ketosis. One, you can measure it in the urine, you can measure it in the breath, and you can measure it in the blood, and that one is the most accurate way to do it. Now, how do you know if you're in ketosis? Here's how you identify it. The blood ketone levels are higher than 0.2 millimoles per liter. That's how you definitely know you're in ketosis. On a regular mixed diet which has about equal amounts carbs, proteins, and fats, somebody will have 0.1 millimoles per liter or less. Now, we shouldn't confuse ketosis with ketoacidosis. With ketoacidosis, blood ketone levels are higher than 15 millimoles per liter. This typically only happens in type 1 diabetics as well as alcoholics. A healthy person couldn't reach that state if they tried. So there's no need for the average person to worry about getting into ketoacidosis into a dangerous state. So then the question really becomes is it effective? Can you lose weight on the keto diet? Well, to do that, here's the theory. The body burns two fuel sources to stay alive. One is sugar, which is glucose, carbohydrates, etc., and the other is fat. If you take away the sugar, only fat is left to burn. However, this theory is sound, and the part that people are missing is that they don't differentiate between body fat and dietary fat. If you're eating less carbs and more dietary fat, you're going to burn more dietary fat, not body fat. So it doesn't quite work. Like you can eat whatever you want as long as it's a high fat diet, and you'll burn body fat. You'll burn dietary fat, not body fat. That's where the theory falls short. So to answer the question of is the keto diet effective, we have to look at the evidence and the research. And to look at the research, there are different levels of evidence. The lowest level of evidence is case studies. This is somebody saying, I did this and it worked for me. That's one person. The next level of evidence is animal studies and in vitro studies. So it worked for mice, rats, monkeys, it worked in petri dishes, but there's no evidence in people. The next level of evidence is, as you can see here, is a cohort case control trial. What that means is that you're gathering a bunch of people and you're separating them based on different characteristics. but you're not manipulating any variables. So you can't infer cause and effect. You can only infer correlations. The next level of evidence is the gold standard in medicine, randomized controlled trials, and the best level of evidence is systematic reviews and meta-analyses. What that is it's a conglomeration of multiple RCTs. So that's what we're going to look at as much as possible where available. And sometimes it's just not available. But here is a study that looked at 17 overweight people that were in a metabolic ward for 2 months. What is a metabolic ward? A metabolic ward is basically a room in a library, in a laboratory where researchers are strictly controlling the diets of these people. So they live in a laboratory for 2 months. Why in a laboratory? Because at home, you have ice cream in your fridge, you have cookies in your pantry, etc. So you might say you're on a diet, but you forget that you're actually snacking on things that aren't part of the diet. In a metabolic ward, your diet can be very strictly controlled. So here were the results after 2 months in metabolic ward. In month 1, these people were on a high carb diet. They ate 300 grams of carbs per day. They were having a great time. In month 2, they were on a keto diet. They burned an extra 100 calories per day for the first 10 days, and yet they had decreases in fat loss. Isn't that interesting? Why would they burn an extra 100 calories per day and yet fat loss decreased? Well, that is because of the process called gluconeogenesis. If you break down that word, it means that they were creating glucose from things that weren't glucose. The word gluco is glucose, neo means new, and genesis means creation. And so those extra 100 calories weren't coming from fat loss. They were coming from the conversion of protein to glucose. So it is effective, but the question is it superior? And the answer is quite simply, no, it's not superior. Every diet of the same calorie level or the same protein level is equally effective for fat loss. Here is one study titled Obesity and Energetics, Body Weight Regulation and the Effects of Diet Composition. The results were, simply put, fat loss is equal as long as calories are equal. And I should also add, as long as protein is equal. Now, let's look at free living studies. There's different benefits to metabolic ward studies versus free living studies. In a metabolic ward study, we can strictly control diet, so it tells us physiologically, is there a difference between a keto diet and a non-keto diet? But it doesn't take real life into account. What takes real life into account is you can tell people go on a keto diet and then go live your life. Will they actually stick to it? So free life tests compliance. So here is a study titled Very Low Carbohydrate Ketogenic Diet versus Low Fat Diet for Long-Term Weight Loss. And here were the results. After 1 year on what people said was the keto diet versus a different group that said they weren't on a keto diet, the keto diet only lost 2 pounds more than the control group. And that's probably not bad. That's probably just because on a keto diet, you hold less water. As soon as they have their first pizza, their body weight goes back up to what it was. So basically, there is no superiority to the keto diet over every other diet of equal calories and equal protein. Speaking of which, if calories are king, how many calories should you be eating? Well, here's the simple answer. Take your desired body weight, multiply that by 15, and add in whatever you spend on exercise, okay? This is the simple version of it. I go into this in way more detail in a separate video, which is almost 7 minutes long, about counting your calories properly. Should you use apps? Should you use a different method? So check that out on your screen or in the description below. Now, how many carbs? Again, if you don't care whether you're on a keto diet or not, eat between 50 and 80 grams of carbs per day. For most people, that's enough to maintain ketosis. However, if you really care about being in ketosis for whatever reason, because it can't be, your reason cannot be fat loss, because as we saw a couple minutes ago, it's not superior. If you want to be in ketosis for reasons other than fat loss, then start at 50 grams per day, measure your ketone levels, and if at 50 grams per day you're out of ketosis, lower your carbs even more. However, if at 50 grams per day you're in ketosis and you're happy with that, stay there, or try bumping it up by 10 grams of carbs per day. Now, how much protein should you get? Start at 1.6 grams per kilogram per day based on your desired body weight, not your current body weight. However, high protein diets do kick people out of ketosis. So if you do get kicked out of ketosis, then decrease your protein intake. Again, this is only if you're interested in being in ketosis for reasons other than fat loss. The next question is, how much dietary fat should you be getting? And the answer to that is, well, the keto diet is inherently a high-fat diet. And so the answer to that is the remainder. So here's what that might look like. Let's say a person weighs 60 kilograms or 132 pounds. They require 2,000 calories per day. And they're going to get 50 grams of carbs, so that they're going to get this much from carbs. They're going to get 96 grams from protein, which means the remainder can be all fat. Okay, and that's the keto diet for women's weight loss. Again, calories are king, protein is queen, everything else is whatever you want. Okay. If you want to dive way deeper into nutrition for fat loss, I have an entire playlist and a video on that topic. Click on that on your screen right now or in the description below.